you, Lauren, and again, welcome everybody and welcome Anna. Speaking of pressure, I did feel some pressure in terms of what I was going to wear tonight, you know, having to interview someone that works at the Iconic, so I sort of went pretty conservative with a splash of colour. It's okay?
It's very on point.
Thank you, Anna. So I'm going to get right into it. So I might, you've got one of the most coveted jobs, I think, are going around, but I might start backwards and try to find out that journey. So how did you get to where you are now? So if we can start off maybe pretty early back in terms of your childhood,
yep.
Which probably not that long ago actually, but...
That was a while ago. I would like to kind of at least say, when I was growing up, I had a tiger mum, so it was pretty intense, very much focused on academic excellence, and I would say I'm old and mature enough to kind of say that when I think about my childhood, I feel like I had to grow up really fast. There wasn't a lot of time in my childhood where I felt like I could be a child, because my mother kind of always expected me to, excel in everything. So she never really believed in sort of time-wasting activities. I think everyone who's Asian probably understands what we mean there. Okay, yeah, sure. So I think that's kind of how I kind of felt, and I also immigrated when, so I came into Australia in the 70s. I was born in Hong Kong, and it was always a little bit weird because I didn't, there's so many Asians now, but back in the 80s at school, it's different, and there weren't as many Asians or Chinese certainly, as there are now. So I always felt, that whole kind of contrast of going home and having this tiger mum and, being at school and everyone was all about carefree, and, the Western Australian culture is very much about freedom and, doing your own thing, and, if you had to rebel to your parents, that's just what you did if you disagreed with them, and that was something that was not really something that you did. So that's kind of, I guess, the sum up of how I felt with my childhood.
Okay, so you didn't rebel then?
Not at all.
Okay. So, grew up with pretty strict parents,
yes.
And I guess understanding that they left Hong Kong,
yep.
They left their careers, set up a new life here. I mean, there's a lot of emphasis on you, a lot of pressure on you to be successful. And then I guess you went down a well-trodden path for many Asians of a good school and then studying commerce at university,
yes.
And then doing your CA.
Yep. Back then it was Coopers and Lyra that became PwC, so you can tell how long ago that was. Undergraduate traineeship. So I started as a school leaver as 18 years old, and I studied my university degree at the same time as working.
Okay, so how much of that was your choice versus the pressure from your parents to work in a big four firm?
I certainly wasn't forced to do that, but I was certainly guided and heavily influenced. It's probably the way I would describe it. It certainly wasn't something that I didn't want to do, but I think when you're 15 or 16, I think anyone has no clue what they're doing. You've just got no idea what you could be. I think there's probably more options than you possibly could ever imagine, and I think trying to decide what you want to do and thinking, oh my God, is that going to be the wrong thing? What if I hate it? Or so on, is always going to be quite natural. But I think, to my mother's credit, and I don't want to sound like I didn't have a great relationship with my mother. I mean, she's amazing and she still is a huge part of my life, huge influence. But I think she was very much that word, had those words of wisdom, which was, I think a commerce degree would be very broad and it would open up a lot of opportunities, and I think that's a nice, safe one to do if you have no clue. And I thought, oh, okay, I think I sit in the no clue bucket, so I'll do that.
Okay, and so whilst at PwC, did you feel that you fit in there? Was that a career path you were pretty comfortable in?
I think it confirmed two things. I think on day one, I looked at a lot of partners, and and we're talking about the 90s now, so, very different to the culture of Big Four now. And I think I looked at a lot of the partners and I thought, I'm not really sure if they're really inspiring me to be a partner. So I kind of decided pretty much from day one that I didn't want to be a partner. However, I did get a good feeling that that was the industry I wanted to be in, that finance and accounting and business was the right fit for me. So, yeah, not to continue in a professional practice long term, but certainly I felt very comfortable with the world of business and numbers and so on.
Yeah. And I think people could pick up pretty quickly that you're not an introvert, that you're quite extroverted. You speak with confidence, so you probably thrived in whatever situation you were put in. And particularly, finance people have a particular stereotype as being more introverted and quiet and maybe less confident. So you were probably a little bit different, and also for Asian.
Yeah, no, very different. And I think a lot of that to do with a combination of, I think my mother has always encouraged me to be whatever I wanted to be, which I think is a really great, really fortunate to have that in my life very early on. And also at school, we had a lot of teachers who, again, you're talking about sort of over 20 years ago, that whole empowering women thing was quite an unusual, it was actually quite an unusual thought. It wasn't really as common, and now these days it's all about, female is future and stuff, which is incredible. But, back in, the 80s and 90s, it wasn't such a big thing. So to be fortunate enough to be surrounded by a lot of strong women growing up, I feel fortunate now looking back that they encouraged me to speak my mind, that if I had an opinion that I had the right to say something. So those sorts of things carried on with me, including in my first role, which I think really helped. When you're quite young and you're confident and you're outspoken, I think it helps a lot.
Okay. And then you moved to Adshel and you spent 10 long years there.
Yes.
Tell us about.
I spent almost 7 years at PwC and I did my chartered accounting program there. And after I did that, I knew I had to leave, and I really sort of didn't really think too much about what I wanted to do. I knew I just wanted to get out into commerce because I didn't want to be a partner. And this role as a finance manager came up, and I thought, okay, this sounds interesting. Advertising on bus shelters and telephone booths and so on. I'm not sure if everyone knows what Adshel does, but on bus shelters and railway stations, shopping centres, you have the advertising panel, and we ran that infrastructure and sold that advertising space to advertising agencies. So essentially that's the business model. So it was quite different, and again, quite new. And it was very much the disruptor because prior to that everyone was advertising on television or billboards. So this kind of smaller format broadcast kind of medium was very, very new, and it was already disrupting the market quite a lot. And I kind of knew that I wanted to be part of something that was quite exciting. A lot of my client base at PwC was emerging businesses, startups, or subsidiaries of foreign telcos and so on. So it was kind of like the type of environment, high growth, that I was used to. And then I joined them, and I was in that role for about 2 years, and then I was fortunate enough to be considered for the finance director role, which was the next step up, reporting to the CEO, and at that point I was 26, so that was quite young. The only female Asian, very young, the youngest across, I think, 30 countries around the world. So it was quite an amazing opportunity, and I'm still very grateful. And I think being exposed to exec team level discussions at such an age it just throws you in the deep end and throws you completely out of the comfort zone very, very early on. So you really don't have a lot of time, to be honest, to kind of stay in the comfort zone, to be honest, because every day you're looking at something different.
So mid-20s, and already you're in a pretty senior finance role. I mean, what do you attribute that to? Was it luck, or do you think there were certain attributes that really got you into that position?
I think you could sort of say it's kind of luck, but I also think that I think you've got to approach life with a really positive mindset. So if you are very optimistic, you're always going to think an opportunity is going to be around the corner. So if you feel negative or pessimistic, you're always going to think the worst, and you're always going to worry about something, or you're going to behave in a way that's going to be super risk adverse. And I think I've always been a really optimistic, positive person, because I've always felt that I could control a lot of my destiny. And I think being able to take a role and know the potential that it could bring, and being at the right place at the right time, is something that you can control. So in a way it is luck, but I don't think it's like luck in the sense that it's like a lottery ticket which is random. I think it's very much about positioning yourself in opportunities that can present themselves, and then also at the same time having a really great approach to work ethic and excellence, and being able to stand out so that you're also, you know, recognised or at least considered for those opportunities.
Yeah, okay. And I'll come back to standing out later, because I want to ask about dressing and you know, your own brand.
Okay, yeah.
But so why did you move on from Adshel?
Well, I was there for over 10 years, and if you kind of follow the numbers and the sums, I kind of been working for sort of 16 or 17 years since I was a school leaver. And the fact that I hadn't had those years, you know, I used to look at all my peers and my high school friends and stuff, and they used to sit at the library or one at university and just bludge, right, at university, and it was just like, I was like oh, I wish I was there, and I wish I had that time. And I never did, but I'm glad that I worked through that period, but at the same time, I felt like I didn't really have a childhood, because as soon as I left school, you know, under intense academic pressure, I was straight into work, and then I never had this kind of period where, you know, everyone was like free and easy kind of thing. So I felt like by that time I was like early 30s, and I felt like I was going on to like 50 or 60, because I kind of had to grow up really, really quickly. So I also got to the role where I'd been the finance secretary for about 8 years, and it was probably no longer a challenge, and I knew in my mind that I wanted to stay in working for another, you know, I don't know, 20, 30 years or something, and I knew I needed to have more than 2 companies in my resume to kind of be where I wanted to be. So I resigned, and I decided to take a career break, and I was very fortunate that my husband, who's here, you know, supported that process as well and that decision. And so I took 9 months off and just did not much. Well, I really wanted to discover who I was. Like, sometimes I think you're so busy working that you don't really know who you are and what your identity is, and I felt like I really needed that time to kind of work out what I wanted to be. And I felt at that time I'd kind of, you know, achieved a lot in my career, but I don't know if I was looking in the mirror and thought, okay, this is everything that I want to be. Like, it does everything, the way I walk, the way I talk, the way I look, the way I do everything. Is it all uniform? It's a bit like, you know, when I say, you know, when you walk into an Apple store, you've already had the impression of what it should be, and then when you go into the Apple store, it's just consistent. It's everything that you ever expected, because the branding, the messaging, and what it portrays is on point with the product. It's on point with the experience. The white branding, you know, all those things. To me, I feel like, and we can talk about personal brand, but I feel like that's how you should represent yourself. You should be, you should walk and talk who you are. You should demonstrate and behave in the way that you expect yourself to be. And so, from my point of view, I think in the last few years before I left Adshel, I'd kind of compromised a few things, which were things like fitness and health and so on, and kind of got myself into a bit of a comfort zone. And so, during that period of kind of career break time, I rediscovered fitness, and I went exercise every day, and I learned everything about nutrition. And I don't know if everyone knows about nutrition, but like, I had no clue about protein, calories, anything about the importance of food and how it would impact your mood, your energy levels. I just had no idea. And I just got all of a sudden, because I started exercising, I was like looking at my diet, and I was reading, and I just got fascinated, and I just kept reading, and I just educated myself completely about how to eat well and look after yourself. So that's basically what I did for those 9 months.
Yeah, okay. It was a big lifestyle change and something that you've stuck to since?
Yeah, huge, yeah. So meal prep Sunday, that's me. So I just line up production line, I make all my meals for the whole entire week. I make Steve's meals for the whole entire week, and I design all the food to fit in with what's important in my day. So it's not just about food, but it's also what type of day I have. So if I have a day that my day starts at 8 a.m. and might finish at 8 p.m., it's important for that food to be the fuel that fuels your productivity, your brain, your energy levels for the whole entire day. And people don't realise that if you eat the wrong thing, that it can affect your mood swings, it can affect your energy levels. Who's got kids? Is anyone got kids in here? Yeah, so, but everyone knows, right, you never feed a child sugar, right? If you feed the child a lot of sugar, it's going to go hypo, right? So it's exactly the same. You don't change as an adult. If you feed yourself lots of things that are, high sugar or, high energy, your energy level's just going to spike up, and then you're just going to crash. And you wonder why, everyone gets that afternoon, kind of like drag in their brain. They're not productive. You make mistakes. You're not alert. You're in a meeting and you're falling asleep. All those things are 100% to do with what you're eating.
Okay.
So I really subscribe by that.
Okay, I might talk to you later about maybe doing my meal preps.
Yeah, no problem. There's people you can outsource it to too. Like, I'm just going to plug it, but like things like Youth Foods and stuff, like, there's some really great businesses that have started up that do that for you, so you don't even have to do it yourself.
All right, you're turning me down. Now, so I guess, by the 9-month mark, you were ready to get back to work.
Yes. Again, Groupon was, I started in July, the business only started in February, so it was really crazy. I don't know how many people know about Groupon, but it was started, originally it was started in the US, and then the Samba brothers, who are, big incubator group, Rocket Internet, also sort of, okay, that works in America, so I'm going to start it up in Europe. And then they ended up then starting a whole heap of businesses internationally, and then Groupon ended up buying them, and then of course, taking over the world in group buying. So when I joined, it was probably about 4 months prior to IPO on NASDAQ. So it was pretty messy, very, very chaotic. We were months and months behind paying any of the merchants, so essentially they signed up all these merchants and obviously collected the money from customers, but hadn't actually paid the merchants. And you can imagine how upset some of these merchants might have been, because you've sold these restaurant deals or massage deals, and the customers are coming in with their voucher, and then you've got to service them, but we hadn't paid them, so not a great experience at all. And when I joined, basically my very first task was to get that up to speed and make sure that the payments were being made. So that's kind of how hectic things were. And but my strength is kind of operational processes, so I fixed it quite quickly. And then we moved on to do and improve other things in finance in the Australian business unit. And then about 12 months later, I got the opportunity and I was promoted to lead all of APAC, 11 countries in finance, which was quite an incredible opportunity. And I was travelling half the time, 11 countries, basically from Australia all the way to India in terms of time zone, and also working with Chicago, where my boss was, yeah.
And did you find it a positive experience?
When I was there, yes. It really pushed me. The days were absolutely intense. I guess with anyone who's probably worked in high growth or startup or anything, like, it's just crazy. And it's amazing how much you can actually achieve in one day. And really, at the end of the day, the only thing that's stopping you is time, because you just keep working and working. And we achieved.
So what kind of hours? Give us a sense.
So in the first year in the Australian New Zealand business unit, it wasn't so bad. It was probably finished at 10 p.m. And then when I went to APAC role, my days ended at 4 a.m. So it was pretty crazy because I would finish my whole day during APAC hours, and then I would have meetings with the international CFO, who was my boss, who worked Chicago hours, so it was pretty crazy.
Okay, and so obviously unsustainable, so something had to give.
Completely unsustainable, yeah. Yeah, something had to give, which was basically the job. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, it wasn't. I think I got myself into a trap. I didn't kind of, you know, put the line in the sand in terms of what was important to me in terms of work-life balance. I, you know, unfortunately fallen into the trap of not keeping up fitness and wellness and stuff. I kept the meal prep up, so that was good. But you know, obviously it impacts you, right? If you're only getting 4 hours sleep or so max per day, you're not going to be great, and you're not going to be productive, even though you think that you are. And to an extent you are, because you're just on adrenaline. But I think a wake-up call was certainly, I think, the people around me. So, you know, my mother and Steve, you know, all gave me feedback that I wasn't the right person, was really not a great person to be around. On the weekends I wasn't present, I wasn't, you know, always working about, I was basically always worrying about work. And that was a big wake-up call. You know, for me it was like, actually I'm not happy. I'm just doing this because, you know, it's a little bit of a high achiever mentality, which is like you can, so you just keep working, but actually it's completely counterproductive. So on reflection, I love that job. It was amazing, and I got to travel and I got to challenge things and really build my strength in terms of understanding metrics better. Like all these skills that I learned were incredible. And, you know, in the end, you know, despite the crazy hours and despite all of that, it taught me, again, it reminded me the importance of work-life balance and the importance of what is important to you, and that you can't give everything, you know, to the job.
Yeah, definitely, and health as well. And so there was another, therefore, career break?
Yep, yeah.
How long was it for this time?
About the same, actually. No, it was probably about a year. Yeah, that career break was about a year.
Yep, more fitness.
More fitness. Nailed meal prep even more. I also took a sabbatical role, so there's an association called NORA, which is the National Online Retailers Association. So they had a whole heap of funding from eBay, PayPal, Australia Post, and so on, and they needed to start up essentially an association, not dissimilar to what you're doing here, which is bringing a whole heap of like-minded people, particularly with, but mainly focused in the online retail space. And I was connected through them, through a partner at PwC, and they sort of said, oh, you know, they've got all this funding, but they need to start it up, so maybe you want to do that while you're just hanging and just having a bit of a career break. And I was like, yeah, that works well, because it's kind of like a mini sabbatical. So I did that. It was 3 days a week, and focus on fitness and so on, and it was just completely different. So I built a website, which is like weird. I didn't have to write the code, but I designed it, and I signed up a whole heap of sponsors, and I ran events like this actually, and I got guest speakers, and, you know, got people to come and you know, learn and grow and learn about online retail and networking and all that sort of stuff. So it was really quite an interesting job to do, so different to what I was doing. And the purpose of that was mainly to keep me occupied, just expand my brain into something quite different. And I did want to stay in e-commerce and online, so it was also a way for me to stay connected, even though I didn't really want to go back to a full-time job at the time. So it worked out, and that's when Patrick, who is my CEO now, he joined The Iconic in 2013, and I had worked with him previously at Groupon, and through that connection we got reconnected, and yes, that's how I ended up at The Iconic.
Yeah, here you are. And so when I sent an email around last week to my staff, just telling them about, you know, this talk and inviting them, I got an email back from one of my staff, and it was a photo of this magazine on her desk. So this is picture of you on the front of Acuity magazine, which must be the Chartered Accountants magazine, and it's dated March 2016, so I'm not sure why it was on her desk. But I tend to think it's because she's a big fan of yours. So Julie, can you just raise your hand there? She's a bit too shy to say, but I think she wants a selfie with you later.
I'm fine with that.
But, you know, with the job comes a bit of a profile.
Yes.
And, you know, you get invited to speak at events now, and you're recognised. You're like the, you know, Sheryl Sandberg for accountants.
If you go back in 2014, which is when I joined the Iconic, it was very different to what it is now. So I'm not sure if anyone's been a customer back then and seen the difference in the change, hopefully for the better. But you know, it was also quite chaotic. You know, it was a lot of the buying strategy, the assortment was not aligned to who our customer was. We didn't really understand who the customer was. We didn't understand which customer was the one that we wanted to actually target. And the brand assortment was super random. You know, you'd go on the site and just be like, okay, I don't know, lots of skimpy dresses, really confused. Similarly with the customer experience in terms of a lot of late deliveries, a lot of things that weren't you know, customer focused. And over the years, we've very much changed that around and actually really changed the business to start from the customer and work backwards. And that's why we've brought on so many more brands, and really amazing brands, because they're the ones that customers want. And we've really, you know, our on-time dispatch. So my role now, I look after the fulfillment side of things, but you know, our standards are 99.7%. So you know, that's a really it's a really incredible target. So that means every single order that a customer makes within, you know, within the expectations that we tell them, they must be fulfilled. They must be picked, packed, and ready to be dispatched. And our target is 99.7%. So very much looked at changing that whole entire business. I think the CFO role has, you know, was part hygiene. When I look at, you know, the importance of numbers, it's hygiene. Like, you just have to get them right, and you need to focus primarily on making sure that they're absolutely right. And you need to get the right people, the right skills in order to do that. You have to collaborate with the business, and you need to, you know, data is messy in any organisation, so you've got to make sure that the numbers that you're getting and you're reporting are right. And then that should only be sort of 30-40% of your time. The rest of the time is understanding what's driving those numbers. So why was your revenue this, and why were your costs X this month? What were the business decisions that we made that impacted that? And that was very much my focus. And so by identifying what the decisions were that drove certain output, we were able to pinpoint and target very quickly where there were leakages, where there were bad business decisions that were being made, and where there were perhaps really good ones, and we should keep doing them. And that was very much the focus. And in order to do that, you need to understand the business, and that's where I think becoming a very operational CFO really helps, because you need to be able to have that conversation. If you're going to have conversations with marketing, fulfillment, customer service, you need to be able to speak their language and not just present a whole heap of numbers. It needs to be a story. It needs to connect with what they've been doing through the month, so that we can understand why, you know, certain costs or revenues are growing, or, you know, so on. So that's always been part of what I've done. Also, in terms of Jim Collins is a really great author, and he has this concept of getting the right people on the bus, and that's completely, you know, I completely sold on that. You know, you have to get the best people, and then you have to, once you've got them, they might already be in the business, you don't necessarily have to recruit them, but then you have to nurture and develop them, and you have to coach them to be the best. You know, they have to be an army, an army of well-oiled people that just can get the hygiene done, and then focus and apply their intellect on what the numbers actually mean. And I think that, for me, has been something that's been very clear. And over the last 3 years, the finance team that I've built has been specifically a team that most people wouldn't look at and go, they're what you necessarily expect as a finance person. They're generally articulate, they're business-minded, and you're coaching them to be able to present to the business.
Yeah, okay. And I know Jim Collins also talks about it, not only having the right people in the bus, but also in the right seats.
Yes.
And so identifying what people's strengths are and
Definitely.
making sure that they're utilised.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, and I know, you've taken a very customer-orientated approach to running this business now, and even before when earlier today I told you that I had to trial the Iconic because I hadn't bought anything on the Iconic. It was just an excuse to do some shopping, but so I downloaded the app on my phone at lunch yesterday. I spent 5 minutes browsing. I bought a couple of items just to see if the next day delivery promise was true.
Scam or not?
Yeah, and it arrived. Yeah, it arrived before lunch today. So, and that was really good. The only bad thing was I got the size wrong. So I looked at the model and I thought, I'm a bit smaller than that guy, so I'll go down a size. I tried it on, too tight. So I need to lose some weight. But when I told you about it, the first thing you said was, how could we have done that better? How could we have made sure that you didn't make that mistake? And that gave me some real insight into how you're thinking about the business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, for us, our ambition is continue to be Australia's leading online fashion retailer. And, the Australian market is very small, and we also understand that the customer, as soon as a customer has a bad experience, and that could be just a really bad experience, as in, maybe we failed. Or it could be, something like what you explained, which isn't necessarily a bad one, but it leaves an emotional imprint in your mind that potentially next time someone says, I'll buy something Iconic, for whatever reason, it might be a year later, you kind of go, I don't know, last time I wasn't really sure, there's this trust element. And we really understand that. So from our point of view, we simply just can't afford, in the Australian market, given the size of the population, to really even have one customer to try us and not want to try us again, because it's not going to be a sustainable business. Our business is going to be built on acquiring new customers, and as soon as they become a new customer, then they need to be a loyal customer. And that's how we make sure, that's why we honour the promise that we give our customer, which is, we'll deliver it as when we said that we would, and we would deliver it in a way that, makes sense, and it's what you expect. So we're constantly trying to outperform and exceed those expectations.
Yeah, I'm lucky it was 15% off, so it wasn't too bad. Now, so going back to, building that team and hiring, the right people on the bus. So what are the top 3 things you look for when you're hiring someone therefore?
I always try to test their values, so understand what their personal values are, because I truly believe that values is what actually connects people. If you think about why you're still friends with people from, primary school or high school, why you're with your partner, why you clash with certain people. It's actually, everyone sort of says it's personality, but actually it's to do with values, because if you don't align on values, then that's where you're going to have disparity on expectations. That's where you're going to have disparity on, how someone talks to someone, or how you treat people, or all those sorts of things. So for me, I always try and get an idea of what the values are. Now, they don't have to be identical, otherwise you'd just have a team of clones, but there are a lot of similarities. So things like, I know what my values are, and my values are honesty, humour, and self-regulation. It's quite fitting. So I try to understand what other people's values are. Are they things that could connect quite well? We have a way of explaining our environment at the Iconic, and it's an acronym called VUCA, and it's an acronym that was developed by the American military post-Cold War, and it stands for V for volatility, U for uncertainty, C for complexity, and A for ambiguity. And the US military used it to describe when the Cold War was over, that they didn't have a specific enemy that they could all unite their organisation from. It became a fragmented world where enemies were everywhere, and that you had to kind of watch for everything. Yes, in a way, it's a bit like now, right? You've got North Korea, you've got Syria, and so on. And it's quite often that they use that to describe organisational culture, and I would say that the iconic is very similar to that, which is when people say it's fast-paced, dynamic, high growth, all those sorts of things. That's what it comes with. It comes with every day could be different. So we also test whether they're going to suit that type of environment, because if you come from an environment where you like things to be predictable, routine, you do the same thing repetitively, it's very comfortable, you don't want any surprises, you want someone to give you, what you're going to do when tomorrow they better not change their mind, it's probably just not going to suit you, because you're just going to be frustrated. And then the last thing is, I think highly inquisitive is something that I think I love, because I think when you're doing something new and you're pioneering things, so for example, where we see ourselves as pioneering online shopping in Australia, you have to be inquisitive, because no one is going to tell you the answer, because no one knows what the answer is. So you've got to be, you really got to be persistent in going, but why, why this, and question things. So I think that's also an important trait that I look for as well.
Yeah, okay. So a good tip there is, if you're ever going for a job at the Iconic, just talk about VUCA.
Yep.
And you'll do well. Now, I want to come back to dressing for success and the importance of personal branding, because
I have a personal interest in fashion, so that was not a prerequisite for my job. But what I do think, surprisingly, whether you're into fashion or not, that the power of an outfit is much more influential than you think, because people do make judgments and opinions on first impressions. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to know what the latest trends are or dress in a way that doesn't suit you. But I think the way you dress should be reflective of who you are. And I think that's really important. So at the Iconic, we talk a lot internally about our brand fundament, which is about customer liberation. And I know that's a bit marketing speak, but essentially our philosophy is that we're here to serve individuals, and individuals can come onto our site and find something that suits their own personality. It doesn't mean that everyone needs to dress exactly the same just because this is in trend, everyone has to wear that. But I think people are surprised. I think even the people who would say that they're not into fashion at all, they're still quite selective about how and what they've chosen to wear. Even the likes of Mark Zuckerberg, who wears a hoodie every day, that's a conscious decision that he's made to portray a certain way, to portray a certain look, and also consciously to decide that that's not a key decision that he wants to make every single day. So regardless of whether it's a big decision or not, he's made that decision. So for me, I think the way that you dress is important, but it has to be, first and foremost, reflect who you are, and you have to be comfortable in it. So there's no point in wearing something to conform to something. So for me, I've always been into shopping. I mean, Steve knows, like, from early on. So I haven't been, pressured to wear or look a certain way because of my job. I certainly feel it's an honour to be able to fit into that as a brand ambassador. But at the same time, I think I always encourage people, wear whatever you want as long as you're comfortable.
Okay. So I want to maybe mention Steve as well, your husband, because you've known him for about 20 years. But
yes.
I met Steve before I met you. Now, Steve is CEO of his own company called iFly Flat, and he helps people use their frequent flyer points to get flight upgrades and different things like that. But he's also known as the Points Whisperer. So, he's got a bit of a brand to him as well. He's a LinkedIn influencer. So quite active, and it sounds pretty strategic. It sounds like you both discuss these kind of things, and how can I market my business better or myself better?
Yeah, I mean, we do talk about it. I would say, I'd like to think that the Steve I met 20 years ago wasn't as sharp looking as he is now. So I think, look, I think at the end of the day, it's about, I think, an outfit or, the way that you present yourself certainly can do wonders to enhance, what you have. So I think that is quite important. And I think, at the end of the day, the way you look, the way you present yourself just has to match your personality. I think, as I said before, you have to walk the talk. And for me, everything about me is what you see is what you get. There is no weekend Anna. There's no work Anna. There's no wife Anna. It's just the same person all the time. And I think that's, at the end of the day, the most important. You've just got to be who you are and not have to put on all these different hats, because it's just like, life is just too hard. You're just going to get super stressed out trying to conform to all these different things. So if you want to wear sneakers, just rock them. It's fine. If you rock them the way that you want to rock them, then you're going to rock them. You know what I mean? Like,
as long as you rock them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're going to rock them if you're confident. If that's you, you're going to wear them. If you're not used to wearing heels, and for whatever reason everyone goes, oh, you should wear heels, and you're uncomfortable in them, you're not going to rock them.
Okay. So do you shop a lot on the Iconic? And if so, it must be free.
I mean, it's not free. Nothing's ever free. But they're certainly very supportive and very generous on things. So I should plug at the top that I'm wearing, which I'm sure quite a few of you might be interested. But it is from the Iconic Manning Cartel, one of our Australian contemporary designers. I really can't pinpoint one person, because I think, I think there's a danger to identify one particular person, because I think then you are starting to fall into the trap of conforming or being someone that you're not. I think it's about taking different attributes of different people that I've come across and absorbing them and making it my own. And also seeing behaviours perhaps that I don't like, and knowing that that's also something that I don't want to be. So I would say that there are lots of different people that have been part of my life. So certainly my mother is by far the biggest influence of who I am.
But interesting saying that you had to put your foot down, so there was a pivotal moment in your life
Yes.
where you had to have a difficult conversation with her.
I did, yeah. So, parents can, particularly Asian parents, they can forget that you're an adult at some point. And you have to remind them, and I think quite often with Asian cultures, you're never taught to actually challenge them. You kind of placate them. They're just like, oh yeah, they're just parents, so just let them do what they, say or whatever. But I think for me it became quite challenging, because, my mother would constantly look at me and have an adult to child relationship. And I was at work, and, I was encouraged to have adult to adult relationships. And so it was very, very difficult when, we're going in my 20s, having that type of relationship with my mother, quite dominating, and of course had been a big influence in my life. So at some point I needed to tell her that wasn't really healthy for me. And also it wasn't the way that I wanted to continue my relationship with my mother. So I had to have one of those conversations, which was, I really respect everything that you've done for me, and I really respect all your words of wisdom, but there are going to be things that I'm not going to listen to you, I'm not going to do. I'm old enough now to make my own decisions, and if they end up being mistakes, then that's fine, because I'm going to own them, and that's just part of life. So, that was, I think it was quite difficult, because I think my mum had kind of always had it, she had this kind of confusing thing in her mind where she wanted her daughter to be this independent, strong, successful woman, but to her, she wanted that passive, you know, yes mum, whatever you say kind of thing. So it was a bit of a, you know, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. I don't think she had really properly thought about that because she focused the whole entire life about, you know, bringing her daughter up into this really independent woman, and not actually thought that she wasn't going to be an exception to that. So I kind of had to kind of educate her on that, and she took it quite well. I mean, in the end, I think she's a smart woman at the same time, and she knew that if that didn't change, my relationship with her didn't change from, you know, adult to child to adult to adult, that I had choices. I mean, I could have moved to another country. I could have just completely not seen her. I think she was quite smart, and she's like, okay, I think perhaps I need to kind of change a bit, and it's been great. Like, you know, so we do have an adult to adult relationship, and it's been great for the last 15, 16 years. So yeah, not an easy discussion. It was quite emotional. Probably the conversation continued for, you know, weeks. Had to remind her continuously, and it was quite emotional. But at the end of the day, for me, it was just like I can't see how this is sustainable. And it had to change, and I wanted her to be a friend rather than a mum. And, you know, she took it really well, and it's been good. I mean, she's still intense, but I see her every week, so it's fine.
Yeah, okay, no, thanks for sharing that. And so going back to your answer, I like what you said about you know, having a number of different role models and taking bits and pieces from it, but at the same time, the importance of being authentic and being yourself.
Totally, yeah. So even like my first CEO, you know, at Adshel, who gave me the opportunity to, you know, to have my first executive role at such a young age, you know, taught me to be authentic, taught me to the importance of coaching, getting out of my comfort zone, encouraged me to be who I was, because again, being the only female and exec in a very predominantly, media is still was and still is a very predominantly male white industry, and encouraging me to just be who I am. You know, I still don't forget that. You know, Patrick, who's my CEO now, is probably the smartest person I've ever come across. So learned so much about how to process information, how to think about problem solving, think about how to articulate things. You know, all these different people that I've come across who have been great leaders, and how they present themselves and how they talk and how they give attention to everyone in the organisation. A lot of those sorts of things you see, and you're like, okay, I can feel the impact on that, and I would love to have that skill as well. That's something that you have to practice, and you do have to practice. You have to practice and practice before. A real philosopher of practicing. You have to practice until you master something, and I think there's a 10,000 hour rule, and I think I definitely subscribe to that. You know, you've got to practice, and you've got to make mistakes, and you've got to learn and take on that feedback and improve the next time. And still now, after 23 years, I still feel like I'm practicing a lot. So I still haven't mastered a lot of things, but I've certainly mastered a lot of things more than, you know, when I was 18 years old. I don't know, it's really hard to say. I mean, I'm just one of those people that just is driven to just be better than yesterday. It's just what I wake up to want to be. So it's not a, you know, it's not a material goal, it's not a financial goal, it's not a title goal, anything like that. It's just, you know, if I've done this yesterday, if I'm doing it today, I want to do it better by 1%. That's just how I'm intrinsically wired. That's how I get satisfied. And so over time, as you progressively improve things, you obviously see the progress, and then you look back and you think, wow, that's a great sense of achievement. So I think it's just an intrinsic desire to achieve and continuously improve. It's just who I am, and it's in everything that I do. So it's not just at work, it's how I exercise, it's how I meal prep, it's how I dress, it's everything has to be better than yesterday. And it's all measured against myself, of course, not on any external factors. But I know if I could do it this way, I know that I can do it at least that, and therefore I should be able to nail it at this level. And when I've nailed that level, then I should be able to do it +1. I mean, self-confidence, I think, is one thing that I speak to a lot of people about, and I think most people are kind of not clear what they want to do, or perhaps a bit lost or whatever, and a lot of it is to do with a bit of lack of confidence. And the biggest worry, I think, a lot of people, and I'm happy for you guys to correct me afterwards or not, but a lot of people, what holds people back is this fear of making this wrong decision, like, you know, making a decision, changing job, or deciding to do something on their own, or whatever it is, and worrying that that's going to be like the biggest mistake that they've ever made. Does that resonate or not? Not really? Yeah. So I think when I was young, I did think, oh, okay, I don't know, what if this is the wrong decision? What if I've chosen the wrong career, or whatever it is? And I think my advice is, first of all, you just can't look back. Like, if you made a decision, that's the decision, and you just got to own it. Like, and I think if you own it and you don't think about all the other options, that's what you've committed to, then you commit and you practice like hell. And when you practice like hell and you master it, and if you're bloody good at something, then you're gonna get the satisfaction. Like, I think from my point of view, it's when people are kind of like, oh, I might do a bit of this and a bit of that, and a bit of that, and a bit of that, and it's a bit like, you just got too much choice then. And I think you confuse yourself, and you don't ever give any of those choices a really good shot at success. And I think you really need to believe in yourself. You need to believe that that's the right thing. Believe that you made the right decision, because it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you don't ever let go of the things that you thought might still be options, you're never going to commit properly to the decision that you've made. And I think I see that a lot. You know, they go, oh, well, I've decided to do this, but I've always thought about what if. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I don't think you're ever going to succeed in the thing that you've chosen to, because all your energy and mindset is thinking about the other options. For me, it's like, this is the one that you committed to. Just, you know, have some resilience and grit. I think that that's something that my mother taught me very well. And I think sometimes millennials, I know from my experience with a lot of them, don't have that. You know, quite often they're driven with instant gratification, and actually the reality is, no matter whether you're talking about 10,000 years ago, humans, in every single instance, it's about grit and resilience. You have to have done a lot of hours to achieve something. Nothing ever comes overnight. Nothing is a free ride. And if you did, then you would know the back of your mind that you didn't deserve this success. If you overnight develop something and tomorrow someone paid you $100 million for that, you know, Brad's going to get you up there and go, so how did you come up with that idea? And you go, oh, I don't know, it was like luck. I mean, how long can you really sustain? Like, I mean, you've got it in your mind and in your heart know that you worked bloody hard for this. Like, that's what provides real happiness and satisfaction. For me, that's what it is, because you put your own heart and soul, and you went through that whole journey. You went through the mental hurdles, those days where you didn't want to continue because life sucked or whatever it is, and you just kept pushing. They're the things that you look back on, you know, 23 years later, and you go, I'm glad I pushed through that. If you stop at those times and you go, oh, well, maybe that just means that, you know, that was a bit hard, maybe I should have chosen the other path, you just haven't got there. It's like finishing a marathon at 35 kilometres. It's like, that's going to be the hardest. I've never run a marathon, but I know enough. I've read a lot of, and I will say this, I've read a lot about sports and how that mental kind of capacity makes a big difference. And it's like stopping there. And it's like, no, you've got to get there. Like, if you stop at the 35k mark, you haven't achieved anything. So for me, it's like, my tip would be, if you're not sure about what you want to pursue, or you've got too many choices, don't think about it, don't procrastinate, just choose one and just make it happen. And put all your energy in making that work, and it will definitely come off. It's the people who are still thinking about all the other things, that's when you can't have put all your heart in that. And I think for me, I would say when you ask me, why did I get into accounting and how did it all start? Well, in a way, I didn't really know. I just decided that's what I've decided. I'm going to do my Bachelor of Commerce. I'm going to do my Chartered Accounting program, and I'm just going to make this work because this is what I've chosen, and I'm going to make it what I want it to be. And that's every role. When you said the coveted role, I'm like, well, I made that role the coveted role. Well, so no one gave me this job description and said, I'm going to, you be the CFO of the Iconic, and you get to do this, this, and this. I just said that's the type of CFO I want to be, and that's how I made that role. And now I'm in my other coveted role now, which is no longer the CFO.
CEO role next.
Yeah, not quite.
Great advice. Hopefully we don't see mass resignations tomorrow from the audience here. And it's great to see that you've got a growth mindset as opposed to that fixed mindset. And actually, we've got a mental toughness coach at the front here, so if anyone wants to have a chat to him later,
I'd love to talk to you. Well, as I got older, I realised and more confident about setting my boundaries. I think setting boundaries early on in any relationship is really important. So when I took on the role with the Iconic, I was very clear with Patrick, my CEO, and also my team that there were certain things I wasn't going to do because they would kind of allow me to slide into the same things that happened in my previous job. So the first thing was no emails on the weekend. So I don't reply to any emails, I don't read emails. If you need me and if it's urgent, you can call me. And that's fine. If it's urgent, obviously if there is actually a legitimate emergency or something crisis, you can call me. That part was no problem. So that was very clear, and I dug my heels in that, and so for the 3 years that I've been at the Iconic, I've not responded to one single email, and I've never written an email to any of my team on a weekend, because nothing more stressful than knowing that your boss is thinking about work on the weekend. It makes you feel so good. So I'd say that's important. Same with I prefer to work at work, and I think it's very important to delineate what's at home. And when I'm at home, that's my sanctuary. Like that's my private area. That's my space. That is my own space. That's not to say that I occasionally don't work from home, because sometimes it is convenient. But I generally don't make it, really often. So I really also push back on taking my laptop home and so on. So I'd rather work at the office and work until I finish, and then that's it. Laptop's down, put it in the drawer, and I'm going home, and that's it. I don't think about work, because I designed my whole meal prep thing about being completely productive at work. So when you have me at work, you have me completely at work, and I'm not distracted by other things. I'm not impacted by poor diet. So at 4 o'clock, I'm not falling asleep. I'm not sitting there going, oh my god, like, get me out of here. I'm super highly charged and completely productive. So I think when you say work-life balance, everyone's got different priorities and different lives. So that's my life, and that's what I prioritise. So everyone's going to have their own priorities, but I think at the end of the day, it's about being mindful and present in the things that you're doing. So when I clock off on Monday and I go to the gym, I'm completely at the gym. I'm not thinking about work, and when I'm at work, I'm thinking about work. I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm not being distracted by random stuff. I'm focused. I have my diary schedule. My EA kind of blocks out time, work time, all this planning time and so on, so that I'm doing all the right things and prioritising the right things. So, I think it really comes down to making sure that the hours and the time that you've allocated to that is fair to whatever it is that you've allocated. And I think where there's an issue is quite often when they have work-life balance, it's not necessarily the hours that they're working, but when they leave, they're still thinking about working. So actually it's quite unfair to your family or your partners or your friends that you're out socially and you're still working, or you're thinking about work. That's not work-life balance. That's what's going to cause you stress.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, I now know why it took you so long to respond to my email. I must have sent it on the weekend. I'm going to open it up to the audience now, and I should just note there's probably just a couple of things that Anna can't talk about. So there's one or two related to Amazon strategy and things like that, but she'll let you know if she can't answer it. I might go to the back first.
So if you were given, or if you were forced to take leave off work for 3 years, what would you do, and what would you spend your time on?
Definitely exercise every single day. I would that would be a dream if I could do that. I'd probably start a blog to inspire people to find exercise and eat well. I would love to if I had more time, but I feel like it's probably just not a priority right now. I think everyone says this to me because I am a very, very good cook, like really good. Because I've been practicing for many years and I always want to make a steak better than yesterday. So I would probably apply to go on MasterChef.
Your next sabbatical.
Yeah.
You mentioned before the customer satisfaction target of 99.6.
No, that's on-time dispatch.
On-time dispatch. What does the 0.3% cover off? Like, what's an example of? Is it human error? Is it just that's the reality, or?
Very good question. It covers off an error of forecasting, for example. So all our orders are batched, picked, and packed, and they work on certain productivity levels. So the productivity level is then I guess multiplied by how many staff you have, and you staff up assuming a certain volume of orders. If for whatever reason, the weather is very cold, for example, and all of a sudden, we put a 15% off promotion on, and everyone's decided, oh my God, I really want to buy, jackets, and the forecast of what we expected the sales to be is higher, then I can't get my people to work faster because they have an average productivity. And if I've only rostered for 50 people, there's no way I can actually get all those orders done. So that's one part. And if you can imagine, I guess it's just a mathematical equation. It's like, that's my CFO brain coming out. So, and the other option is that I do have the right staff, but perhaps for whatever reason, I've got more casuals or more agency staff who have a slightly lower productivity than what I'd expected. System issues might cause, the picking instruction. The pickers basically have a gun, and the gun tells them where to pick, and if we've got system challenges because it's overloaded or anything like that, it can slow down their picking capacity. So that's essentially what can happen. So some things that potentially out of your control. So on most days, we get it quite right. So it's quite predictable because you can work out based on particular push notifications, emails, what your open rate will be, what your click-through rate, what your traffic will be, what your conversion rate. It all works out, and you can predict it quite well. But there are obviously going to be things that might throw us a bit of a spanner in the works, and that's when we can't. Yeah, but we always notify if you're in that 0.3. Always notify that your order might be late, and we always compensate you.
Thank you.
Great talk, thank you.
Thank you.
You have made a good case that you're very good at finance, that you're very good at operations, and I think you're pretty awesome. So the question that Boston asked was, where are you going to be? You've probably got 30 years left, didn't you, in work? So
Probably.
What are you going to do over that next 30 years? Are you going to end up like a CEO of an Australian domestic company? You've had APAC experience. Are you going to do something in APAC? Or are you going to do your own startup? Any ideas?
Don't know. Very good question. Actually, quite often I get asked that. But the thing I would remind everyone is, and it's my famous line now, which I love quoting, is if you asked me 23 years ago if one of my dream jobs was to be a CFO of an online retailer, that wasn't even possible because online fashion retail didn't even exist back then. So when I you know, I'm sure I'm not talking out of school that you would remember back in the 90s. We didn't even have the internet really. So it's hard for me to say what my next step would be, because I'm not driven by industry and I'm driven by title. I'm driven by what is keeping me in the learning zone. So I'm always, I thrive in the learning zone. If I'm, you know, I'm challenged by a new problem that I need to solve, because right now we're launching automation in our fulfillment processes, so there's all this logic of algorithms that you have to be solving all the time, and like that's super exciting. You know, that's just like intellectually so challenging. So for me, that's super exciting. So I'm kind of driven by what that new challenge is. If the role becomes boring and like becomes stale, then I'm going to look for something new. And what that is, I'm really open. And I think that's the benefit. When I joined the Iconic, it was kind of pretty messed up, to be honest. And I think, you know, none of this is a secret. I mean, you can look back at some of the press back in 2013, and it was just, you know, and I think in the write-up for this, you know, back then it was, you know, $100 billion worth of losses, so really super messed up. And when I took the role, I had recruitment agencies call me and say, oh, you know, I just want to let you know that like that's like a revolving door. Like everyone just runs out of there, and it's a messed up place, and it's just horrible. Good luck, but I just want to let you know that that's the reputation, just in case you don't know. And I'm like, I know. So I took a job that, to be honest, at the time was not covered at all. Like it was like, you know, it was a bit of a basket case actually. But I believed in myself, and I believed that I could change it. Like I was like, you know, I mean, Patrick sold it to me and said, oh, really, this can't get worse. And I thought, yeah, you're right, it can't. So, you know, you've got to get into those opportunities where you can see a potential and not be judged by, I didn't care, quite frankly, I didn't care what other people thought. I believed that we could change this. I believed that it took time, but I knew that we were going to change the Iconic into something that our customers would love, would be a brand that would be loved by our customers. The brand awareness is, you know, 85–90% in Australia, which is phenomenal. So I knew that we could do that, and I think I would look at the next opportunity as being the same, which is if it's an opportunity that excites me the same way as all the other roles that I've done, then I have a knack of being able to identify that and then get in there and make it the role that I want to be. So I guess, I know it's a very long answer, but I'm just not driven by titles or companies or whatever. I'm driven by what I can make of that role.
I'm an avid Iconic customer.
Love it.
I actually also used to model for them back in the day.
Excellent.
I was back then, they had the curtains between.
In Mary Street?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Long time ago. So my question to you is, you talk a lot about hygiene in numbers and driving the output. For the Iconic, what is the key area of the business that drives the output?
Well, I would answer NPS, but that technically NPS is an output. But we are absolutely driven by what our customers tell us. So we study that religiously. Like I know exactly the reasons why customers are detractors. I know exactly the reason why they're promoters. I know exactly the type of customer that is a neutral, and we are doing a lot of analysis and understanding, you know, what is the correlation of behaviour for the promoters and detractors, and which type of customer we want to invest in. Because, I mean, some of the detractors, the feedback is important because it's a bad experience, but at the same time, sometimes it's just really hard to just talk a detractor into becoming a promoter, like it's almost impossible, so you've just got to fix some of those issues. But, so for me, the most important input is at the end of the day, customer experience. So when we talk about we're holding the fulfillment process to these targets, we know that that's critical, because if we let that suffer, every customer who has that bad experience that we said, okay, well, for example, if Brad, if you ordered that yesterday and you didn't get it, I would be gutted. Like, I would be so disappointed if you didn't get your order today, because it would just...
Discount.
Sorry?
I get a discount.
Yeah, we would absolutely compensate you. Absolutely, we would compensate you. So I think, you know, it's making sure that you honour that promise. Like, you said to the customer that you would give them this particular item as you expected on the site with these descriptions, this exact thing, when we told you that we would give it to you. And I think that's, at the end of the day, the fundamental contract that we've made with you as a customer, and we just have to deliver that. And we are constantly measuring ourselves and our ability to do that, because at the end of the day, it's like with everything, right? If you have a trust in that brand, it's because they've delivered the promise that they said that they would.
Is that why you brought the sizing tool in? That new sizing tool that you brought in?
Yep.
So is that a big part of that sort of experience?
Yeah, so I mean, our customers basically, one of our biggest, I think, one of the biggest objections to customers buying online, and also Brad's experience in terms of the sizing, is our biggest customer problem that we're trying to solve. I don't think, you know, we've looked at probably every single tool that's out there, every single one of them. So if you're going to come and speak to me about, oh, there's this 3D camera, whatever, we've probably looked at it, everything. And its most important is usability, right, and effectiveness. So the thing that the way I responded to Brad's feedback when he said, oh, the fit wasn't quite right, and I knew instantly, I was like, because you brought it on the app, and currently we don't have that fit analytics tool on the app. It will be soon, but on the website we do. So you just put in your height and your weight, and it tries to estimate what your average size was, and then uses other customer behaviour to try with the similar kind of proportions to predict what type of size that you should buy. So I would love to actually know if you try that tomorrow on the website and see if it recommends medium or small. Yeah.
Maybe one last question, if anyone has one. Okay. Great. So thank you very much, Anna. And I was just thinking, if the future's uncertain. If you're ever unsure about what kind of role you want to take, I'd probably offer you a job. So
thank you, Brad.
Confidence there.
Thank you.
Can everyone just please thank me for Anna's time and her wonderful insights. And Jason, you might hang around for a few minutes.
Definitely.
If anyone wants to chat. If anyone wants to join me in getting her to do the meal preps for us, she's available.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you.